Look closely. A man trapped forever inside a fragile glass sphere. A bird, armored like a knight, devouring human limbs. And sinners, condemned to suffer, their bodies twisted into the very instruments that once sang with joy. This is not fantasy. This is not a dream from your darkest night. It is a painting, created over 500 years ago, by a man whose own face we have never seen. His name was Hieronymus Bosch, and the visions he left behind still haunt us today. Bosch was born around 1450 in the small Dutch town of Hertogenbosch, a place of cobbled streets, Gothic towers, and church bells that echoed through every hour of the day. His real name was Hieronymus van Aken. He came from a family of painters, but while others painted saints glowing in heavenly light, Bosch turned his eyes towards something darker, something dangerous. He painted not comfort, but warning. In his lifetime, Europe lived under the shadow of the church. Heaven and hell were not abstract symbols. They were destinations, waiting at the end of your life. Every sermon in every church spoke of hell in terrifying detail, and Bosch took those words and gave them shape, twisting them into images so vivid, so unforgettable, that once you saw them, they lived inside your mind forever. His most famous work, The Garden of Earthly Delights, is not just a painting. It is a map of the human soul, a triptych, 3 great panels connected as one. On the left, paradise, a vision of creation. On the right, hell, a descent into torment. And in the center, something entirely new, a vision of Earth unlike anything the world had ever seen. At first glance, the central panel looks beautiful. Hundreds of figures roam across endless green meadows. They bathe in pools of blue water, they ride horses, camels, even fantastical beasts that no naturalist has ever recorded. They carry strawberries the size of their heads, sharing them as though they were treasures. No one here grows old, no one here suffers, no one here dies, and yet there is something wrong. No one looks to the sky, no one asks where they are or why. They are too busy touching, tasting, taking. In Bosch's time, the church warned that desire was a dangerous fire. The central panel is not heaven, it is the moment before the fall. A world of endless pleasure, where every step leads closer to the right-hand panel, closer to hell, and that is Bosch's true genius. The most dangerous place in his painting is not the one that frightens you. It is the one that seduces you. On the left side of Bosch's great triptych, we see the beginning of it all. Paradise, the Garden of Eden. At the center, God presents Eve to Adam, the first man and woman, standing together beneath the shadow of a strange, rocky fountain. Around them, the world seems untouched, pure. Exotic animals wander through bright green fields. Rivers sparkle in the sunlight. Strange birds circle in the sky. At first, it looks like peace, a vision of creation filled with harmony. But Bosch was not painting the paradise of golden icons and perfect halos. Look closely, and unease begins to creep in. The fountain at the center rises like a dark tower, alien and unnatural. Its shapes twist and curl like something alive, more bone than stone. The animals, though beautiful, are unsettling. A unicorn drinks beside a bear. Birds glide gently above. But then, a lion sinks its teeth into the neck of a deer. Even here in Eden, violence has already begun. This is not eternal peace, this is fragile balance. A stillness before the storm. And at the heart of it, Adam gazes at Eve not with awe, but with a strange resignation. As if Bosch knew, even in paradise, the seed of sin had already been planted. In Bosch's time, sermons often reminded the faithful that Eden was not perfection, but temptation waiting to unfold. Bosch's paradise is no exception. It is beautiful, yes, but it is also fragile, trembling with the weight of what is about to come. This panel is not simply the dawn of creation. It is the warning that even paradise contains the shadow of the fall. In the center of Bosch's triptych lies the most puzzling vision of all, a world overflowing with movement, color, and desire. At first glance, it looks enchanting. Hundreds of figures wander across meadows of green that seem to stretch without end. They swim and splash in pools of blue water. They ride not only horses and camels, but also creatures no naturalist has ever recorded. Fantastical beasts that belong more to dreams than to earth. Everywhere, naked bodies twist and turn in dance, playful, unashamed, eternal. There is no shame here, no suffering, no sorrow. Gigantic fruits are carried like treasures. Strawberries the size of a human head are lifted in triumph. Cherries, grapes, and apples pass from hand to hand, symbols of temptation dressed up as delights. A fruit, after all, is sweet only for a moment. But Bosch reminds us, sweetness can rot and pleasure can sour. The people here do not seem to notice. They touch, they taste, they take. Every act is repetition, every gesture indulgence. It is a paradise of the senses. But only the senses. Look closer, and the beauty begins to unravel. Faces blur into one another. Bodies merge into impossible shapes. Humans are swallowed by oversized shells, enclosed in glassy spheres, or perched precariously on the backs of birds and beasts. Pleasure has turned uncanny, bordering on grotesque. And what is most unsettling, no one looks upward. No one searches for meaning. No one asks, why am I here? They are too distracted, too consumed by the endless game of desire. In Bosch's time, priests thundered from pulpits that lust was fire, a fire that glowed warm at first, but always, inevitably, burned the soul to ash. And that fire smoulders beneath this panel. What seems like joy is actually surrender. What seems like freedom is the first step toward captivity. This is not heaven. It is the world abandoned to appetite. A place where pleasure has no end and no consequence. Or so it seems. But Bosch gives us a warning. Every hand that reaches, every body that bends, every bite of fruit taken in delight is a step. And each step leads not forward, but sideways, toward the right panel, toward fire, toward hell. On the right side of Bosch's triptych, all illusions collapse. Here, beauty is gone. Pleasure has turned to punishment. Welcome to hell. The sky burns with an unnatural glow. Black smoke and crimson fire blotting out the heavens. Cities collapse in flames. Demons swarm across the land, half human, half beast, born from nightmares. Everywhere, humans are no longer free. They are trapped. Men are bound to colossal musical instruments, their bodies stretched and twisted into harps and drums. Others are forced to drink until they drown, their bellies swollen with agony. Some are cut open by knives larger than their own bodies, their flesh offered to demons in grotesque mockery. But Bosch does not stop with torture. His genius is far more unsettling. He shows punishment as a mirror of sin. The glutton is eaten alive. The gambler is crushed beneath dice. The proud musician is forever bound to his own harp, his body silenced into sound. Desire becomes its own prison, and sin its own executioner. And then, in the center, we see one of Bosch's most haunting figures. A bird-headed demon sits upon a throne, a parody of a king. Its beak swallows human limbs. Its belly holds the damned. Trapped inside a transparent blue sphere, it excretes bodies into the pit below. A grotesque cycle of consumption and waste. This is not just horror. This is order inverted, creation mocked. For Bosch, hell is not chaos. It is justice twisted into nightmare. Every punishment fits the crime. Every torment reflects the sin that caused it. 500 years later, these images still disturb us, not because they are impossible, but because they feel inevitable. Bosch forces us to look at hell not as a myth, but as the consequence of our own choices. Why did Bosch paint like this? Why fill his panels with nightmares of glass prisons, monstrous birds, and burning cities? To understand, we must return to the world he lived in. 15th century Europe was not a place of comfort. It was a world of plague and fire, of sermons that thundered from pulpits, warning of sin and damnation. Every town square carried the echo of church bells. Every wall carried the shadow of the crucifix. Life was short, death was certain, and beyond death, there was only judgment. Heaven and hell were not distant metaphors. They were vivid, terrifying destinations. The church did not simply teach this, it enforced it. Every sermon described hell in excruciating detail. Boiling cauldrons, iron hooks, devils who tore souls apart. Fear was the language of faith. Most painters answered this with a reassurance. They gave the faithful saints bathed in golden light, angels radiant against blue skies, visions of paradise that comforted even as the world burned outside. But Bosch was different. He did not soothe, he confronted. His brush became a mirror. He looked at human life and saw not perfection, but weakness, not holiness, but hunger. He saw men and women consumed by lust, greed, and vanity. And he painted those desires not as harmless pleasures, but as paths that ended in torment. In his work, every indulgence carries its punishment within it. Every moment of joy contains the seed of its own destruction. Perhaps Bosch truly believed he was saving souls, shocking sinners into repentance by giving them a glimpse of what awaited. But there is something more in his visions, something the sermons of priests could never explain. They are too strange, too specific, too personal. No other artist of his age painted like this. No one else imagined a bird-headed demon on a throne, or humans devoured by giant fish, or bodies turned into harps and drums. His imagination belonged to no tradition. It was his own. This leaves us with a haunting question. Was Bosch simply illustrating the warnings of the church? Or was he painting visions that came unbidden, images that only he could see? We cannot know. His diaries are lost, his letters gone. Not a single portrait of him survives. He left behind no words to explain himself, only the paintings. And in those paintings we glimpse a world that is at once terrifying and irresistible. Even 5 centuries later, Bosch refuses to release us. We keep looking. We keep searching for meaning. Because perhaps, deep down, we fear that what he painted was not just imagination. Perhaps it was truth. 500 years have passed since Bosch painted his visions. Empires have risen and fallen. The world he knew is long gone, and yet, his paintings remain. And they still disturb us. Why? Because the fears he painted are not locked in the Middle Ages. They are ours. We may no longer believe in demons with claws or fire that burns forever, but we know the torment of greed. We know the hunger of lust. We know the emptiness that follows desire. Bosch's monsters have not vanished. They have only changed shape. When we look at his paintings, we do not just see medieval nightmares. We see ourselves. The world of endless pleasure in the central panel feels strangely familiar. Bodies obsessed with sensation, blind to consequence. The hell that follows it feels less like fantasy and more like warning. Bosch understood something we still struggle to admit. That the line between delight and destruction is thinner than we like to believe. That paradise and damnation are not distant realms, but states of the human heart. And so his paintings live on, not as relics, but as mirrors. We do not look at them to learn about his time. We look at them because they whisper to ours. Because whether we live in the 15th century or the 21st, the temptations are the same, the consequences the same, and the questions the same. What is pleasure? What is sin? And where do the choices we make finally lead? Hieronymus Bosch died more than 5 centuries ago. We do not know where he found his visions, or what demons haunted his sleep. We do not know his voice or even his face, but we know his imagination, because it still speaks to us, as vividly as the day he painted. His art refuses to fade. Other painters gave us beauty, harmony, saints lifted to heaven in rays of light. Their works are admired, respected, even loved. But Bosch is different. Bosch is unforgettable. Because once you have entered his world, you cannot leave it unchanged. The Garden of Earthly Delights is not just a triptych, it is a journey. You begin in paradise with Adam and Eve in the stillness of creation. You wander into a world of pleasure, dazzling and strange. And before you realize what has happened, you find yourself in hell. It is not a painting you simply look at. It is a painting that takes you by the hand and pulls you into its depths. And that is Bosch's true legacy. He does not merely show us images, he makes us feel them. The laughter of the figures in the central panel is seductive. You almost want to join them. The tortures of hell are grotesque. You want to look away, but you cannot. He understood that art is not a decoration for walls, but a force that enters the soul. Even today in Madrid's Museo del Prado, where the Garden of Earthly Delights still hangs, the reactions are the same. Visitors lean in close, their eyes searching for details. Some laugh nervously, pointing at the bizarre creatures. Others fall silent, unsettled by the violence, the cruelty, the inevitability of punishment. Bosch knew that fascination and horror walk hand in hand, and he painted to make sure neither would ever let us go. Scholars debate his meaning. Was he a devout Catholic, warning of sin and damnation, or a visionary, painting images no priest could have imagined? Perhaps he was both. Perhaps he believed in judgment, but also felt the darker truths of human desire so deeply that he had no choice but to paint them. What is certain is this: Bosch created a universe that was entirely his own. In a time when artists were bound by tradition, by rules, by the expectations of the church, he broke free. He painted what no one else dared. And in doing so, he changed forever what painting could be. 500 years later, we return to his work not because it comforts us, but because it confronts us. It forces us to ask questions that have no easy answers. What is pleasure? What is sin? What is the cost of desire? And most haunting of all, what if Bosch was right? When we stand before the Garden of Earthly Delights, we are not simply looking at a relic of the past. We are standing in front of a mirror, and the faces we see reflected in its strange waters are not just those of Adam and Eve, or nameless sinners of another age. they are ours. Thank you for watching. And if stories like this speak to you, feel free to stop by again. Just subscribe. We might find each other again looking at another painting.